During Thanksgiving dinner, my son-in-law smiled defiantly. In 3 days, we're moving into your new apartment. My daughter added coldly, and you'll end up in a nursing home. I just nodded, hiding my anger, because I had a plan for revenge, sharper than a turkey knife. When they burst in on Sunday, their smug smiles melted like snow in the desert. They thought I was a weak old man, but they were wrong. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The turkey had been in the oven since 9 that morning. I'd basted it 3 times, the way Margaret used to do, brushing butter across the golden skin until it glistened. The table was set with her good dishes, the ones with the delicate blue rim she'd collected over 30 years of marriage. I'd folded the napkins into triangles, placed them just so beside each plate. 3 settings: me, my daughter Gertrude, and her husband Cornelius. They were supposed to arrive at 3. By 4:30, the mashed potatoes had formed a skin, and I'd reheated the green beans twice. When the knock finally came, I opened the door to find Cornelius already scrolling through his phone. Gertrude stood behind him, her expression flat. "Traffic was terrible," she said, not meeting my eyes. No hug, no apology. Cornelius brushed past me into the living room. "Man, it's stuffy in here. You got the heat cranked up too high or something?" I closed the door slowly. "It's 72 degrees. Same as always." He was already examining my furniture, running his hand along the back of the sofa. "This stuff is pretty dated. How old is this couch? 20 years? 23. I moved toward the kitchen. "Dinner's ready. I just need to carve the turkey." Gertrude dropped onto the couch without offering to help. Her phone lit up in her hands, and she started typing. Cornelius wandered to the window, peering out at the parking lot below. "You've been in this place forever, haven't you?" he asked. 30 years next March. He made a sound that might have been acknowledgement. I returned to the kitchen, listening to them murmur to each other in the living room. My hands moved through familiar motions, carving the breast meat, arranging it on the platter. Everything looked perfect. Everything felt wrong. At the table, Cornelius sat heavily and immediately reached for the wine bottle. He poured himself a generous glass, set the bottle down on his side, and took a long drink. "So, Judson," he said, cutting into the turkey, without waiting for me to serve myself. "This is a bit dry, don't you think? Gertrude, we should have just gone to that steakhouse I mentioned." My daughter took a small bite and set down her fork. "It's fine, Cornelius." "I spent all morning preparing this," I said quietly. "Your mother used to make the stuffing this way." Gertrude's jaw tightened. She returned to her phone. Cornelius dominated the meal with talk of his real estate ventures. A property in Tempe he'd flipped for $60,000 profit. A commercial deal in Mesa that fell through. He spoke in that assured way of his, gesturing with his fork, explaining market trends as if I couldn't possibly understand. When I mentioned a case I'd worked on, a corporate embezzlement scheme I'd helped unravel during my years as a forensic accountant, he nodded absently and steered the conversation back to property values. I noticed him taking photos. Quick ones, phone angled toward the living room, then the dining area. "For reference," he said when he caught me watching. The pumpkin pie was homemade. I'd rolled the crust myself, mixed the filling from scratch. I brought it out with 3 forks and a can of whipped cream. Cornelius leaned back in his chair, arms folded across his chest. "Before dessert, we need to discuss your living situation." The air seemed to compress. I set the pie down carefully, centered it on the table. "What situation?" I asked. Gertrude finally looked at me. She pulled a glossy brochure from her purse and slid it across the table. Sunset Valley, assisted living, smiling elderly faces in a garden, activities calendar, 24-hour medical staff. "Dad, I found you a wonderful facility," she said in that measured tone people use with children. "They have everything you need. You'll be much safer there." My hand tightened around my fork. I forced myself to set it down gently, fold my hands in my lap. "I don't need—" Cornelius cut me off. "Judson, I've made a decision about your situation. Sunday, we'll be moving into your North Scottsdale place. You understand? It's too much space for one person. It doesn't make sense for you to be rattling around in a 3-bedroom condo when you can't even manage stairs anymore." I could manage stairs perfectly fine. I'd walked up 3 flights just last week when the elevator was being serviced. "Sunday," I repeated. I already made copies of the keys when we helped you view the place last month, Cornelius continued. He pulled a keyring from his pocket, dangled it briefly before returning it. We'll handle everything. You just need to pack your personal items. The moving truck is scheduled for 10 in the morning. Gertrude wouldn't meet my eyes now. She studied the brochure, smoothing its edges with her thumb. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. We're doing what's best. The table between us held the ruins of my Thanksgiving meal. Gertrude's barely touched plate, Cornelius's empty wineglass, Margaret's dishes that had witnessed 30 years of family dinners, back when family meant something. 3 days, I said slowly. Cornelius nodded, satisfied. Exactly. Sunday. We'll be there at 10 sharp. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, the way she held herself rigid, the rehearsed quality of her words. This wasn't a sudden decision. They'd planned this, discussed it multiple times, waited for the escrow to close on my new condo that had happened 1 month ago before making their move. I see, I said. They left before 6, Cornelius already on his phone scheduling something, Gertrude pausing at the door as if she might say something else. She didn't. After they left, I sat alone at the table, the untouched pie, the brochure with its smiling elderly faces. I picked up the brochure, studied the address, the glossy promises of safety and community. Then I walked to my desk and pulled out a file folder, labeled Property Documents. My hands were steady. I had work to do. The night had been long. I hadn't slept. Instead, I'd sat reviewing documents until dawn. Now, Friday morning, light filtered through the blinds, casting stripes across my dining table. Every paper related to my North Scottsdale condo lay spread before me like evidence at a crime scene. The deed, purchase agreement, escrow closing statement, title insurance, all bearing my name, Judson Marshall Diaz. Sole owner, purchased outright with $485,000 from my retirement savings. No mortgage, no co-signers, nothing ambiguous. I opened my laptop and logged into my bank accounts. Checking account, $12,000. Savings, $340,000 remaining after the property purchase. Both accounts showed only my recent transactions. No unauthorized access. Not yet. The untouched pie was still on the counter where I'd left it. I scraped it into the trash. My phone sat beside the laptop. I picked it up and dialed a number I'd looked up an hour earlier. Foster & Associates, how may I help you? This is Judson Diaz. I need to consult with Mr. Raymond Foster, urgently about property rights. Family members are attempting to take possession of my condo without authorization. Can he see me tomorrow? The paralegal's voice shifted, became more alert. I can fit you in tomorrow morning. Does 9 work? 9 works perfectly. Thank you. I ended the call and immediately dialed another number. Kowalski Notary Services. Ms. Kowalski, I need to update some legal documents. Power of attorney revocation, possibly a new will. How quickly can you accommodate me? I have availability next week, Monday afternoon. Excellent. I'll call Monday to schedule once I've met with my attorney. I set the phone down and pulled out a yellow legal pad. My handwriting was still precise despite the sleepless night. I created a timeline mapping every interaction. March 2024. Told Gertrude I was purchasing the condo. September 2024. Cornelius helped me view the property. October 2024. Escrow closed. Obtained keys. October 2024. Cornelius made copies of keys without asking. November 2024. They announced their plan, 5 months of planning. Waiting for the right moment. Thanksgiving seemed deliberately chosen, a day when I'd be vulnerable, nostalgic, surrounded by reminders of family. I turned to my computer and opened old files from my forensic accounting career. Case notes from 35 years of investigations. The daughter who systematically drained her mother's account, transferring money in amounts just below reporting thresholds. The son who forced his father to sign over the house by claiming incompetence, then sold it within a month. The nephew who manipulated the will while his uncle lay dying, forging signatures with practiced ease. I'd tracked those people down, testified against them, watched them squirm under cross-examination as their schemes unraveled in precise, documented detail. The patterns were always the same. Isolate the victim, create urgency, present the theft as help, as care, as what's best for everyone. Not with me. I started a new list. 1. Secure property, legally. 2. Protect financial assets. 3. Document everything. 4. Investigate their situation. That fourth item deserved attention. Cornelius's rush to move in, 3 days' notice, suggested desperation. Financial pressure. In my experience, people with stable situations didn't need to steal from elderly relatives with such urgency. I photographed every document on the table with my phone. The deed, the closing papers, bank statements, emailed copies to myself as backup. Then I grabbed my keys. The drive to North Scottsdale took 30 minutes. My new condo sat in a modern complex with desert landscaping and a gate requiring a code. I'd memorized that code. I parked across the street and studied the building. 3rd floor, corner unit, 2 balconies, morning sun warming the stucco walls. I'd chosen this place carefully, spent months searching for the right property. Margaret and I had always planned to move somewhere nicer once we retired. She hadn't lived to see it happen. I visualized Cornelius walking up those stairs, using that copied key, claiming my space as his own. My phone rang at 8 that evening. Gertrude's name on the screen. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Hello? Hi, Daddy. Her voice dripped false sweetness, the kind she used when she wanted something as a child. I just wanted to check in. Sunday's all set, right? Cornelius has everything arranged. You won't need to worry about anything. Just have your personal things ready. You're being reasonable about this, aren't you? I sat in my armchair, the one Margaret had picked out at a furniture store in 1997. Phone pressed to my ear, my other hand resting on the chair's worn arm. Yes, Gertrude, Sunday. I let the pause extend. I'll see you then. Dad, I know this seems sudden, but it's really for the... I need to go now. Goodbye. I ended the call before she could respond. The copy of the property deed lay on my desk. I picked it up, ran my finger across my printed name. The paper felt substantial, official, legal weight behind every word. Sunday Cornelius expected to walk into my home with his copied key and his moving truck and his smug certainty that I was too old, too confused, too powerless to stop him. Let him come. My mind cycled through the old cases again. The criminals I'd exposed, the methods I'd used to track money, uncover lies, document theft with such thorough precision that juries needed less than an hour to convict. I'd spent 35 years investigating people who thought they were clever, who believed they'd covered their tracks, who underestimated the quiet man with the calculator and the patience to follow every thread. Not with me, I said aloud to the empty apartment. Saturday morning would bring the first real move. I set my alarm for 6. The lawyer's appointment was at 9, and I wanted time to review everything again. As I finally lay down to sleep, I thought of Cornelius's smug face across the Thanksgiving table, his arms folded, his rehearsed speech, his absolute confidence. Sunday he expected to walk into my home. I'd be ready, more than ready. I allowed myself a small, cold smile in the darkness. I woke before the alarm. 6 in the morning, and my mind was already cataloging the day's tasks. The lawyer appointment, the notary, the condo. By 7, I was dressed and reviewing my notes one final time. The documents I'd reviewed all night were now organized in my briefcase, color-coded tabs marking each section. Property deed under blue, escrow papers under yellow, my handwritten timeline under red. Everything Cornelius and Gertrude needed to see laid bare, except they wouldn't see it. Raymond Foster would. I arrived at Foster's downtown office at 8:50. The building was older brick, solid, the kind that housed attorneys who'd been practicing for decades. His name appeared on the directory in simple lettering, Foster and Associates, 3rd floor. The waiting area held leather chairs and legal journals. A receptionist glanced up, saw me checking my watch. Mr. Diaz, he's ready for you. Raymond Foster met me at his office door. Early 50s, steel gray hair cut short, handshake firm without being performative. His office smelled of old books and coffee. Come in. Tell me what's happening. I spread documents across his conference table systematically. The deed first, then the escrow statement, then my timeline. As I talked, he listened without interrupting. No sympathetic noises, no reassurances, just attention. When I finished, he picked up the deed, examined it closely. Mr. Dawes, let me be clear. This property is legally yours. Your daughter and son-in-law have zero claim. If they attempt entry without your permission, that's criminal trespass. We can pursue restraining orders if needed. He set down the deed. The copied key is concerning. We need to eliminate that vulnerability immediately. I worked 35 years investigating financial exploitation of vulnerable people, I said. I testified in court against family members who did exactly what my daughter is attempting. I never imagined I'd be on this side of it. I met his gaze. But I'm not vulnerable, and I'm not unprepared. No, you're not. He pulled a legal pad toward him, started writing. I'll draft a cease and desist letter today. You'll have it by tonight. Tomorrow, when they arrive, you hand them this document. No arguments, no explanations. Just the letter and a closed door. He looked directly at me. Can you do that? Stay firm? I can do that. He made 3 phone calls while I sat there. First to the county recorder's office, confirming my deed registration. Then to a locksmith he trusted, explaining urgent weekend service needed. Finally to a security company, describing camera installation at a residential property. I wrote him a check for $5,000. My hand didn't shake. This wasn't expense. This was investment. You'll hear from me tonight, Foster said at the door. Check your email around 6. The letter will be there. The notary's office sat in a strip mall near Camelback Mountain. Small, efficient, the walls covered in certificates. Sylvia Kowalski was maybe 60, gray hair pulled back, reading glasses on a chain. Mr. Diaz, come in. The new will took 20 minutes to read thoroughly. I went over every line before signing. Kowalski watched me without rushing, her pen ready. I've notarized many documents like this, Mr. Diaz. Family situations that turn difficult. She applied her seal with practiced precision, the press leaving its impression in the paper. This will stand. Make sure your attorney has a copy. Brief pause. I hope it doesn't come to probate, but if it does, your intentions are crystal clear. She handed me the document in a protective folder. I thanked her and left. The drive to North Scottsdale took 35 minutes. My condo looked exactly as it had yesterday. Modern stucco, desert landscaping, 3rd-floor corner unit catching afternoon light, but today professionals were transforming it into something else. A fortress. The locksmith arrived first. Heavy-set man, maybe 40, toolbox that looked like it weighed 50 pounds. These are commercial-grade deadbolts, he explained, holding up the hardware. Nobody's getting through these without serious equipment. Your old keys? He tossed Cornelius's copies into his toolbox. Useless now. He demonstrated the new lock, solid mechanism clicking into place. You'll have the only copies. I tested it myself. Once, twice, 5 times. The lock engaged smoothly, firmly. Cornelius's stolen key was worthless metal now. The security company technician came next, younger, efficient, climbing a ladder to mount cameras at the entrance. Motion activated, he said. Records to cloud storage. You can access footage from your phone. He showed me the app, the live feed already streaming. Anyone approaches your door, you'll know. I stood in the empty living room watching them work. Sunlight streamed through the windows I'd chosen, across floors I'd selected, in the space I'd purchased with money I'd earned. My home. Mine. Back at my apartment that evening, I opened my laptop. Email from Foster at exactly 6 o'clock. See attached. The cease and desist letter was 3 pages. Dense legal language that boiled down to one message. Stay away or face prosecution. I printed it, placed it in an envelope. Then I started changing passwords. Bank accounts first. Investment portfolio. Email. Utility accounts. Each one replaced with complex combinations. I kept a written record in a notebook I locked in my desk drawer. The power of attorney I'd given Gertrude years ago, signed after Margaret died when grief made me want someone to help manage emergencies that needed revocation. Foster had included the form in his email. I printed it, signed it, scanned it back to him. Another vulnerability sealed. My phone buzzed. Text from Gertrude. See you tomorrow, Dad. 10 o'clock. Please have your things ready. I didn't respond. The envelope with Foster's letter sat on my entry table. Tomorrow morning, Cornelius would arrive with his moving truck and his stolen keys. Let him try those keys. Let him knock. I set the envelope where I'd see it first thing, then walked to my window. The sun was setting over Phoenix, painting the sky orange and purple. Somewhere across this city, my daughter and her husband were packing, confident, unsuspecting. I didn't smile. I didn't feel triumph yet. I just felt ready. One more night. Then Sunday would come, and with it, the first real confrontation. I was prepared for it. The new locks were already tested, the cameras already recording. Foster's letter sat in its envelope in my jacket pocket as I drove toward North Scottsdale. 7:30 in the morning, roads nearly empty, sun still low. I wanted to be there first, waiting, ready. The condo parking lot was quiet. I parked near the entrance, went inside, walked through each room checking windows, locks, cameras. Everything secure, everything mine. At 9:40, I positioned myself inside the front door. The security camera feed showed on my phone. Empty hallway, elevator doors, stairwell entrance. I watched, waited. 9:58, the elevator opened. Cornelius emerged first, Gertrude behind him. He carried a clipboard and wore a polo shirt like this was a business transaction. She had her phone out, already texting someone. They walked to my door with absolute certainty in their stride. Cornelius pulled out his copied key, slid it into the lock, turned it. Nothing happened. He tried again, jiggling the key. Pushed on the door. The deadbolt held firm. "This key doesn't work." Confusion flickered across his face. "Did you change the locks?" Realization dawned slowly, then fast. "You changed the locks? What is this, Judson? We had an agreement." His voice rose, echoing in the hallway. "We have a truck full of our things. You can't do this." I opened the door 6 inches. The chain lock held. "What are you doing here?" I let silence hang between us. "I don't recall inviting you. I don't recall agreeing to anything." Gertrude pushed forward. "Dad, this is cruel. We made plans. We gave up our lease. Where are we supposed to go?" I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen, held it toward them. "Here's what actually happened at Thanksgiving. Listen carefully." Cornelius's voice came through the speaker. "Judson, I've made a decision about your situation. Sunday we'll be moving into your North Scottsdale place." My voice quiet. 3 days. Gertrude's voice. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I stopped the playback. "You announced. You decided. You never asked." Cornelius's face reddened. "This is illegal. You can't lock us out of our property. I'm calling my lawyer. We'll sue you for everything. You're going to regret this, old man." I pulled Foster's envelope from my pocket, unfolded the letter with deliberate slowness, held it up where they could read the letterhead. Foster and Associates. Legal terminology in bold print. Try it. Sue me. Call whoever you want. I kept my voice level, each word distinct. This is my property. You have no claim, no right, no permission. That letter explains everything. My lawyer's contact information is at the bottom. I passed the letter through the gap. Leave now, or I call the police for trespassing. Cornelius grabbed it, scanned the first page. His jaw clenched. "Trespassing? Trespassing? That's rich coming from you." Gertrude's voice shifted, became higher, desperate. "You can't throw away your own daughter. After everything, Mom would be ashamed of you." That one landed. Just for a second I felt it. Margaret's absence, the hollow place her death left. But then I thought of the dishes on Thanksgiving, the meal prepared with love, Cornelius's sneer over dry turkey. "Your mother taught you better than this," I said quietly. "Don't use her to justify what you've done." I closed the door. The deadbolt clicked home with satisfying finality. Through the security camera feed, I watched them. Cornelius's mouth moved, shouting something I couldn't hear through the door. Gertrude pulled at his arm, trying to lead him away. He shook her off, paced the hallway like a caged animal, came back to pound on my door 3 times with his fist. I didn't open it, didn't respond, just watched the feed. Gertrude said something sharp. I could see her mouth the word leave. Cornelius pointed at the door, at her, then back at the door. His face had gone from red to almost purple. Whatever he was saying, it wasn't calm. A neighbor's door opened 2 units down. An elderly woman peered out, saw the commotion, quickly retreated. That seemed to register with Gertrude. She grabbed Cornelius's arm again, more forcefully this time. After 5 minutes of this, 5 minutes of Cornelius's rage spending itself against my silence and my deadbolt, they finally left. The elevator doors closed behind them, cutting off whatever final words Cornelius was shouting. I went to the window overlooking the parking lot. 3 floors down, their U-Haul truck dominated the space, taking up 3 parking spots. Orange and white, the rental company's logo bright in the morning sun. They'd rented it, packed it, driven it here expecting triumph, expecting to unload their lives into my home. Now they climbed into Gertrude's sedan parked beside it. Even from 3 floors up, I could see Cornelius's arms gesturing wildly. Gertrude had her face in her hands, shoulders shaking, crying or laughing, I couldn't tell. They pulled away, leaving the truck where it sat, abandoned like their plan. The confrontation had lasted maybe 15 minutes. 3 days of their planning, demolished in quarter of an hour. I looked down at my phone. The security cameras had captured everything. Their arrival, Cornelius's failed key attempt, my handing them the legal letter through the chain-locked door, their threats, their escalating frustration, their eventual retreat. I forwarded the footage to Foster with a brief message. Sunday went as expected. Video attached. His reply came within minutes. Perfect. Save everything. Multiple copies. They'll regroup and try again. Be ready. I sat on the floor of my empty living room, no furniture yet, just carpet and sunlight, and watched the footage again. Studied Cornelius's face when the key didn't work. That moment of confusion transforming into understanding, then into rage. Gertrude's manipulation attempts, the way she'd tried to weaponize her mother's memory. The abandoned U-Haul truck sat 3 floors below, like a monument to failed ambition, full of their belongings, nowhere to go. How long before they had to return it? 24 hours? 48? And where would they take those belongings now? Foster was right. This wasn't over. This was just the first battle, the opening move in what would likely be a longer war. I needed to understand what had driven them to this desperation. The urgency in Cornelius's plan, the 3-day deadline, Gertrude's willingness to betray her father. Something deeper was pushing this. Financial pressure, most likely. In my experience, desperate moves like this always came back to money problems. If my career had taught me anything, it was this. Follow the money, and you'll find the truth. Monday morning, I'd start digging into Cornelius's finances. Bank records, credit reports, property transactions. Whatever I could legally access through public records and professional databases, I still had credentials for. The forensic accounting network didn't just disappear when you retired. Contacts remained. Access remained. Knowledge certainly remained. I'd investigated financial criminals for 35 years, tracked embezzlers, fraudsters, Ponzi scheme operators, found hidden assets, traced money through shell companies, reconstructed financial crimes from fragmentary evidence. Now I'd investigate my son-in-law. The sun climbed higher over Scottsdale, streaming through my uncurtained windows. The U-Haul sat abandoned below, bright orange against gray asphalt. Somewhere in Phoenix, Cornelius and Gertrude were regrouping, planning their next move. Maybe calling lawyers. Maybe calling family members to spin their version of events. Maybe just sitting in shock that their certain thing had collapsed so completely. But so was I planning, strategizing, preparing for whatever came next. And I had a 35-year head start in this particular game. I stood, brushed carpet dust from my pants, took one more look at the parking lot below. Then I walked through my condo one more time, checking each room, each lock, each camera angle. Everything secure, everything documented, everything ready. This was my home, mine alone, and I intended to keep it that way. The rest of Sunday passed quietly. I stayed at the condo until evening, then drove home. Monday morning, I made coffee and sat at my desk, knowing the next move would be theirs. I didn't have to wait long. I'd sent Foster the security camera footage Sunday evening. His Monday morning email was brief. Excellent documentation. Expect counterattack within days. He was right. Wednesday afternoon, December 4th, someone knocked at my apartment door. Persistent knocking, not aggressive but urgent. I checked the peephole. Gertrude stood alone in the hallway, mascara running black streaks down her cheeks, tissues clutched in one hand. I opened the door but didn't invite her inside. Instead, I stepped into the hallway, pulling the door nearly closed behind me. Physical distance, emotional distance. "Dad, please!" Her voice broke on the word. "We have nowhere to go. Our landlord already gave us 30 days' notice. Cornelius has been... There have been problems I didn't know about. We have debts. Serious debts." She wiped at her face with the tissue, leaving more smudges than she cleaned. "I'm your daughter. Doesn't that mean anything? We need help. Just let us stay in the condo temporarily, a few months while we figure things out." I watched her performance with detachment, the calculated pauses, the strategic mentions of family and daughter. In my career, I'd investigated cases where family members manipulated vulnerable elders this way, crying on demand, invoking blood ties as leverage. "You came to Thanksgiving dinner with this plan already made," I said. "You announced you were taking my home and putting me in a facility. You didn't ask for help. You tried to take what wasn't yours." I let the silence extend. "If you're in financial trouble, that's unfortunate, but it doesn't give you rights to my property." Her tears stopped, just like that. Her face shifted, hardened. "You're punishing me for marrying Cornelius. You never liked him. This is revenge." Her voice climbed higher. "I made a mistake, okay? But I'm still your daughter. You're supposed to forgive family." "Family doesn't betray family," I said. "You need to leave now." I stepped back inside. "Don't come here again unless you're invited." I closed the door, heard her standing there for another minute before her footsteps retreated down the hallway. The following Monday, December 8th, a certified letter arrived. I signed for it at my door, carried it to my desk, opened it carefully. Brookstone Legal Services letterhead, cheap paper, smudged logo. The letter demanded I honor my verbal commitment to transfer the North Scottsdale property to Cornelius and Gertrude within 30 days. I photographed it from multiple angles, documenting everything, then scanned it and emailed it to Foster. His response came within an hour. "This is amateur hour, Judson. Brookstone Legal operates out of a mini mall. This letter has no legal weight. Verbal promises about real estate. Statute of frauds requires written contracts. I'll respond tomorrow, and they'll fold." A second email followed. "But this tells us something. They're desperate enough to try anything." I typed back, "Desperate people are dangerous. I need to understand what's really going on with them. What's driving this?" That started me thinking, investigating, doing what I did best. On December 15th, I sat at my computer and opened the Maricopa County Recorder's database. Public records. Anyone could access them. I just knew better than most people where to look and what to look for. I entered Cornelius's full name, Cornelius James Wright. Records populated on my screen. Property transactions, mortgages, and there, in red, a federal tax lien. Filed 8 months ago. $47,000 owed to the IRS? I kept digging. Found a second mortgage, home equity loan, taken out last March. $215,000. I opened a spreadsheet, started tracking everything. Dates, amounts, creditors, cross-referenced property records with court filings, built a timeline of financial collapse. 2 properties purchased last year, both sold at losses within 6 months. Total losses, $85,000, credit card judgments, 3 of them ranging from $8,000 to $15,000. The picture emerged clearly. Cornelius Wright was drowning financially, and Gertrude probably didn't know the full extent. That home equity loan taken out quietly last spring. The timing suggested he'd hidden it from her, needed quick cash, forged ahead without full disclosure. The tax lien had been filed in April. By Thanksgiving, they were desperate, not greedy, desperate. They hadn't wanted to live in my condo. They'd wanted to sell it, use my equity, my $485,000 in cash, to pay off Cornelius's debts while dumping me in assisted living where I couldn't object or interfere. I printed everything, created a dossier, 43 pages of public records documenting financial catastrophe. As I collated the pages, my phone rang. Foster. "The mini-mall lawyer sent me a response," he said. "They're withdrawing their demand. No explanation, just a brief notice that they're no longer representing your daughter and son-in-law." "They ran out of money to pay the retainer," I said. "Most likely. How's your research going?" "Completed. Cornelius is bankrupt in everything but legal filing. Tax lien, massive debts, bad property deals. He needed my condo to save himself. Foster was quiet for a moment. That information is leverage, but be careful how you use it. I will. I hung up and looked at the dossier on my desk. 43 pages of ammunition. Knowledge was power. And now I knew everything. The question was what to do with it. Wait for their next move, or make one of my own? I thought about Gertrude's tears in the hallway. Real desperation mixed with learned manipulation. She was in trouble. Married to a man who'd lied to her, probably about much more than finances. Part of me, the father part, the part that remembered her as a little girl who'd climbed into my lap with storybooks, wanted to help her. But the rest of me remembered Thanksgiving, the cold dismissal, the brochure for assisted living, the certainty in her voice when she said, "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." She'd made her choice, sided with Cornelius, participated in the attempt to take my home. Still, this information about Cornelius's hidden debts, Gertrude deserved to know she'd been lied to, not as forgiveness, as warning. I decided to wait, not use the information yet, but keep it ready, because Foster was right. Desperate people were dangerous, and Cornelius was desperate in ways Gertrude didn't even know. That made him unpredictable, and unpredictable opponents required careful handling. I filed the dossier in my desk drawer, locked it, and made myself dinner. Tomorrow I'd decide the next move. Tonight, I just needed to think. Outside my window, Phoenix spread beneath the December sunset. Somewhere out there, Cornelius was plotting. Gertrude was crying. They were running out of options, and I had all the information I needed. The advantage was mine. The question was how to use it. I'd sent the invitation in late December. 3 weeks to let them wonder what potential resolution meant. 3 weeks to let their financial situation worsen. 3 weeks for them to build hope that maybe, finally, I was ready to negotiate. The note was brief. I'm willing to discuss your situation. Come to my apartment January 10th at 2 o'clock, both of you. They arrived at exactly 2. I watched through the peephole as they approached. Cornelius wore a button-down shirt and slacks, trying to look professional. Gertrude looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a hasty ponytail. I opened the door. "Come in." They entered cautiously, exchanging glances. I'd arranged my living room like a conference room, my chair at the head, 2 chairs across from me with a coffee table between us. On that table, I'd placed 3 identical manila folders, each thick with documents. "Sit down," I said. Cornelius's eyes fixed on those folders immediately. He recognized the setup, the formality, the staging, the folders positioned like evidence at a deposition. This wasn't reconciliation. This was something else. "Dad, thank you for agreeing to meet," Gertrude started, her voice tentative but hopeful. "We've had time to think, and I didn't ask you here to listen to apologies," I interrupted. I opened my folder, the pages already marked with colored tabs. "I asked you here to show you something." I slid the first document across the table. Federal tax line. Cornelius James Wright. $47,000. Filing date clearly visible. "This was filed in April," I said calmly, conversationally. "Public record. Available to anyone who knows where to look." Cornelius's face drained of color, going from healthy tan to ashen gray in seconds. Gertrude picked up the document, her brow furrowed with confusion. "What is this?" "Your husband owes the IRS $47,000, I said matter-of-factly. "Has owed it for 8 months, since April." "That's—" Cornelius started, but I was already sliding another document across. "This is the home equity loan you took out in March. $215,000 against your house. Also public record. Recorded with the county. Anyone can access it." Gertrude's hands trembled as she picked it up, scanned the first page, flipped to the signature page. Her signature wasn't there. Only Cornelius's. "Last March?" Her voice went high, strained. "We talked about our finances in March. You said everything was fine. You said we were in good shape. You lied to me?" "This is invasion of privacy." Cornelius stood abruptly, his chair scraping back. "How dare you investigate me? You had no right. This is harassment. I'll report you for public records." I cut him off, my voice level and cold. "Tax liens are public. Mortgage records are public. Property transaction records are public. Everything I found, anyone could find. Anyone with internet access and a name." I met his eyes. I just knew where to look. My 35 years as a forensic accountant taught me exactly where to look. I slid the third stack of papers across, watching them fan out slightly. Property transactions, purchase prices, sale prices, losses highlighted in yellow marker. You lost $85,000 on bad property deals over the past year. 2 properties bought, both sold at significant losses. The tax debt, the hidden loan, the credit card judgments. You're drowning financially. That's why you wanted my condo. Not to live in, to sell, to pay off your debts with my equity while dumping me in assisted living where I couldn't object or interfere. Gertrude was reading through the papers now, hands shaking so hard the pages rustled. Is that true? Is any of this true? Cornelius didn't answer. His jaw worked, muscles tensing and releasing. Answer me. Did you plan to sell his condo? Did you lie about everything? We needed that money. Cornelius's voice exploded into the room, bouncing off the walls. I needed it. Everything was falling apart, and you were useless. Just spending and spending on your pottery classes and your lunches and your shopping. And your father had this property, just sitting there. And he's old, Gertrude. He doesn't need that much space. He doesn't need... Get out. I stood, walked to the door, opened it wide. Both of you. This meeting is over. Cornelius grabbed the documents from the table, crumpled them in his fists. You think you're so smart. You think you've won. This isn't over, old man. This is far from over. Cornelius, stop. Gertrude reached for his arm, trying to pull him toward the door. He shook her off violently. No, I'm done with this. Done with his superiority. Done with his games. Done with him acting like he's better than everyone. He wants war. He's got it. They moved toward the door, Cornelius storming ahead, Gertrude looking back at me with something I couldn't quite read. Confusion? Betrayal? Pain? All three? Gertrude, I said as they reached the threshold, you might want to check your own credit report. I suspect you'll find some surprises Cornelius hasn't told you about. She stopped mid-step, stared at me, then followed Cornelius into the hallway. I closed the door behind them and listened to their argument continue outside, voices rising, accusations flying back and forth. It lasted several minutes, a full-blown fight in my hallway, before they finally left the building. I returned to the living room, gathered the copies of documents I'd kept for myself, filed them away in my desk drawer. The meeting had gone exactly as I'd planned. Better, actually. Gertrude's shock had been genuine. The betrayal she felt, not from me, but from Cornelius, was real and deep. I'd driven a wedge into their marriage, into their alliance against me. She'd never trust him completely again. The doubt would eat at them. Would it be enough to separate them? I didn't know yet, but I'd planted the seeds, and doubt was corrosive, especially in a marriage already stressed by financial catastrophe. I made myself dinner that evening, simple and quiet. Pasta with vegetables, a glass of water. As I ate at my kitchen table, my phone buzzed with a text. Gertrude. Just 2 words. I'm sorry. I stared at those words for a long time. Was she apologizing for Thanksgiving? For Cornelius? For choosing him over me? For herself? Did it even matter at this point? I typed a response, then deleted it. Typed again, deleted again. Finally, I settled on 5 words. Actions matter more than words. I hit send and set the phone down, face up on the table, watching to see if she'd respond. She didn't. Sorry wasn't enough. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Too much had happened. Too much betrayal. But that text told me something important. The wedge was working. She was questioning her choices. Questioning Cornelius. That was a start. Now I had to wait and see how Cornelius would react to being exposed, humiliated, revealed as a liar not just to me, but to his own wife. Cornered animals were dangerous, and I'd backed him into a corner with no easy escape. I'd turned his wife against him, exposed his failures, destroyed his credibility. He wouldn't take that quietly. Men like Cornelius, men who built their self-image on confidence and success, they didn't handle humiliation well. He'd retaliate. The only question was how. January passed in cold silence. No calls, no visits, no messages beyond that single, I'm sorry. I kept my routines, morning walks, coffee at the corner shop, weekly calls with Foster to review any developments. There were none. The quiet felt like the eye of a storm. Gertrude's text had been the last communication. 4 weeks of silence. I wondered what was happening in their house. Whether Gertrude had confronted Cornelius about the credit cards, whether their landlord was calling, whether the debts were crushing them yet. Then came Valentine's Day. The knock at my door that afternoon was tentative, not aggressive. I checked the peephole. Gertrude stood alone, no Cornelius. She looked exhausted, hair pulled back messily, no makeup, dark circles under her eyes. In her hand, a white envelope. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in immediately. "What do you want?" "Dad, I didn't come to fight. She held out the envelope. "I need help." I took it. 3-day notice to pay or quit. Rent amount, $5,600. 2 months overdue. "I checked my credit like you told me to," she said. Her voice was flat, defeated. "There's debt everywhere. Cards I didn't know he opened. Loans in both our names. $43,000 in credit card debt I never saw. I'm drowning, and I don't know how to swim." I stepped aside. She entered and sat in the same chair she'd occupied in January. But this time her posture was different, smaller. Genuine desperation, not performance. "I'm sorry you're in this situation," I said, and I meant it. "I truly am. But you stood next to Cornelius at Thanksgiving and told me you were putting me in a home while taking my property. You didn't come to me asking for help then. You came to take." I let the words settle. "You're 37 years old, Gertrude. You're an adult. You need to handle your own problems." "I made a mistake. I know that now. I see what he is." Her hands twisted together in her lap. "But I'm still your daughter. Doesn't that count for anything?" Pause. "I'm not asking for much. Just enough to keep us from being homeless." I stood, walked to my window, looked out at the parking lot. Part of me, the father part that remembered her learning to ride a bicycle, that remembered teaching her to drive, wanted to write that check, wanted to save her. But I remembered the brochure for Sunset Valley, the cold certainty in her voice, the way she'd avoided my eyes. "If you're homeless, that's Cornelius's doing, not mine. You chose to stay with him after January. After you knew the truth, those are your choices." I turned back to face her. "I hope you find a solution, but it won't come from me." She left without arguing. I watched from my window as she walked to her car, sat behind the wheel for several minutes before driving away. For a moment, I questioned my decision. Then I shook my head and returned to my routine. A week later, the certified letter arrived. Arizona Department of Economic Security, Adult Protective Services Division. I signed for it with a sinking feeling. A complaint had been filed questioning my mental capacity. A social worker would conduct a home visit evaluation. I called Foster immediately. "This is a nuclear option from Cornelius," he said. "Adult Protective Services investigations are serious. If they believed him, they could petition for emergency guardianship. But this complaint is transparent retaliation." He paused. "Just be yourself during the evaluation. Show them your financial competence. You'll be fine." "When will they come?" "Usually within a week of the notice." I spent the next 5 days preparing, organized all financial documents in clearly labeled folders, prepared a written timeline of the family conflict with supporting evidence, cleaned my apartment thoroughly, though it was already clean, made sure everything demonstrated competency, independence, mental clarity. On February 28th, Patricia Moreno arrived, professional woman in her 40s, clipboard in hand, assessment forms visible. She wore business casual and had kind but evaluating eyes. "Mr. Diaz, I need to ask you some standard questions. What's today's date? Who's the current president? Can you tell me why you think someone filed this complaint?" "Today is February 28th, 2025, I answered. "The complaint was filed by my son-in-law, Cornelius Wright, in retaliation for my refusal to transfer property to him. Here's the documentation of our dispute. The cease and desist letter from my attorney, the security footage from when he tried to force entry, the financial records showing I'm fully self-sufficient." I handed her the first folder. She took it, eyebrows rising slightly. For 90 minutes she conducted her evaluation, asked me to count backward from 100 by sevens, toured my apartment, noting cleanliness, organization, safety, reviewed my bank statements, medication list, I took a blood pressure pill, that was it, and meal planning. Finally, she sat back on my couch, setting down her clipboard. Mr. Diaz, you're clearly competent. I've been doing this work for 12 years. You're one of the most clearly competent people I've evaluated. She made a note on her form. This complaint is textbook elder financial abuse. Not you being abused through incompetency, but someone attempting to manufacture incompetency to gain access to your assets. I'll recommend immediate dismissal and flag this as a malicious filing. Relief washed through me, but I kept my expression neutral. Thank you. I'm sorry you're dealing with this, she added. Family disputes are the hardest, but you're handling it exactly right. Documentation, legal representation, maintaining your independence. After she left, I called Foster to report the outcome. Excellent, he said. Her report will be filed today, and APS will close the case. But Judson? This tells us Cornelius is escalating, weaponizing government systems. That's a sign of desperation. What's his next move? I don't know. But desperate people don't stop. They double down. I hung up and stood at my window again. Somewhere out there, Cornelius was getting more desperate, more cornered, more dangerous. The storm I'd sensed in January was building, and I had the feeling the worst was still ahead. A week after the APS dismissal, I thought maybe Cornelius had finally given up. I was wrong. The threatening text from February had been the warning sign. March brought the actual storm. It started on a Tuesday evening around 8 o'clock. I was reading in my living room when someone started pounding on my door. Not knocking. Pounding. Judson, open this door. Open it! Cornelius's voice loud enough that neighbors' doors were opening down the hallway. I didn't move toward the door. Instead, I picked up my phone and dialed 911. This is Judson Diaz at 2847 East McDowell Road, apartment 304. My son-in-law is at my door making threats. I have a history of conflict with him. I need police assistance. The pounding continued. You think you can ruin my life? You think you can turn my wife against me? This is your fault. Everything is your fault. The operator stayed on the line with me. Officers are 7 minutes away. Stay inside. Don't open the door. I heard other residents' voices in the hallway now, telling Cornelius to leave, someone threatening to call the police themselves. That seemed to penetrate his rage. The pounding stopped. I heard footsteps retreating. When police arrived 6 minutes later, Cornelius was gone. But 3 neighbors gave statements confirming his behavior. The officers took my report, photographed my door, one of his strikes had left a small dent, and filed an incident report. You might want to consider a restraining order, one officer suggested. This kind of escalation doesn't usually stop on its own. The next morning, I called Foster. It's time. I'll prepare the petition today. With the police report, the APS complaint history, the previous confrontation documentation, we have plenty of grounds. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for March 15th. $350 to file. Worth every penny. 2 days before the hearing, Gertrude called. Dad, I need you to know I'm leaving him. I said nothing, waited. I should have left in January, after you showed me the truth. But I was scared. Scared of being alone, scared of starting over, scared of admitting I'd made such a terrible mistake. Her voice was different now, clearer, steadier. The night Cornelius went to your apartment, the night the police came, he came home raging. Blamed me. Said if I hadn't told you about the eviction, none of this would have happened. Like somehow I'd caused his financial collapse, his lies, everything. Where are you now? A friend's couch. I took what I could carry and left while he was at work. I'm filing for divorce next week. That's a significant step. I know you don't trust me. I know I destroyed that. But I wanted you to know. I'm done with him. I'm done being manipulated and lied to. I'm getting a job, finding my own place, rebuilding on my own. Pause. I'm not asking for money or help. Just, I wanted you to know. I hear you, I said carefully. Actions matter more than words, Gertrude. If you're serious about this, prove it through what you do, not what you say. I will. She hung up. I sat with the phone in my hand, wanting to believe her, but not quite able to. Trust had to be rebuilt, not declared. The restraining order hearing was brief. Foster presented the evidence, the Thanksgiving confrontation, the Sunday incident at the condo, the APS complaint, the recent door-pounding incident with police report. The pattern was clear. Cornelius didn't appear, Didn't even send representation. The judge granted the order. 100 yards minimum distance. No contact, direct or indirect. Violation meant immediate arrest. This is a tool, not a trophy, Foster reminded me afterward. It provides legal protection, but restraining orders sometimes enrage people further. Stay vigilant. I drove home with the certified copy of the order, feeling both relief and unease. Legal protection was good, but Foster was right. I'd just humiliated Cornelius again, stripped him of more control. That evening my phone rang. Gertrude again. I filed the divorce papers today. Case number DV 2025-03107. I'm sending you a photo of the filing receipt. The photo came through. Official court stamp, her name and Cornelius's. Filed date March 18th, 2025. I'm also filing a complaint with the Arizona Department of Real Estate, I said, about Cornelius's conduct during this entire situation. Using his position unethically, copying keys without authorization, fraudulent representation about property ownership. Silence on her end. Then, he deserves it. Everything he's done, he deserves the consequences. I'm not doing this from revenge, I said. I'm doing it because his actions warrant professional discipline. I know, and I support it. We talked for a few more minutes. She told me about the job interview she had lined up, about the small apartment she was hoping to rent. She sounded sober, realistic, not the manipulative daughter from December or the desperate woman from February. When we hung up, I allowed myself a small measure of hope. Maybe she was genuine this time. Maybe she'd finally broken free. Time would tell. Trust took time to rebuild. But for now, I had one final piece of business to handle. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a thick folder I'd been assembling since January. Inside, documentation of every unethical action Cornelius had taken. The copied key, breach of client trust. The false representation of ownership, fraud. The aggressive behavior, conduct unbecoming a licensed professional. 3 months of building this case, cross-referencing dates with state regulations, organizing evidence. Tomorrow, I'd finalize the formal complaint to the Arizona Department of Real Estate. Cornelius had tried to destroy me. Now it was time to dismantle the last pillar holding up his life, his career. Not from anger, from justice. He'd used his position to manipulate me. That needed consequences. My phone buzzed, another text from Gertrude, keeping my promises one step at a time. I looked at that message for a long moment. Maybe she was genuine. Maybe she'd really changed. But regardless of Gertrude's transformation, Cornelius's reckoning was coming. And this time, I'd make sure it stuck. Late April became May. Spring in Phoenix meant heat returning, temperatures climbing toward summer's furnace. The desert bloomed briefly before the real heat arrived. Palo Verde trees bright yellow against blue sky. Gertrude had visited twice more. Brief, careful conversations where we tested the boundaries of rebuilding trust. But I had other business to conclude. The complaint against Cornelius's real estate license sat complete on my desk, ready for filing. I'd spent months assembling it, cross-referencing every action with professional regulations, organizing exhibits chronologically. On May 7th, I met Foster at his office. The complaint was 18 pages. Every professional violation Cornelius had committed, documented and cross-referenced with Arizona Department of Real Estate regulations. Attached exhibits, photos of the copied key, security footage from the Sunday confrontation, police reports from both incidents, Foster's cease and desist letter from December. This is airtight, Foster said, turning pages slowly, occasionally making notes. Breach of client trust, misrepresentation, harassment of a former client, violation of professional standards. The department takes these complaints seriously, especially when documentation is this thorough. They'll investigate for 60 to 90 days, but based on this evidence, suspension is likely, revocation possible. He used his position to target me, I said, keeping my voice level. Copied keys without authorization, claimed ownership of property that wasn't his, leveraged his professional relationship for personal gain. That can't go unpunished. If he keeps his license, he'll do this to someone else, someone who might not have the knowledge to fight back. Foster nodded, closing the folder. We'll file today. I'll hand-deliver it to ensure it goes to the right department. My personal statement concluded the document, written in my precise professional language. As a former forensic accountant who spent 35 years investigating financial fraud, I recognize unethical conduct when I experience it. Mr. Hartley violated every principle of his profession in his treatment of me as a former client. 20 minutes later, the complaint was officially submitted. The next 2 weeks passed in normal routines: morning walks, coffee at the corner shop, monitoring my accounts, reviewing my security camera footage periodically, maintaining the habits that kept me sharp and aware. Around May 20th, I received notification that the department had opened an investigation. 2 days after that, my phone rang from an unfamiliar number. "Mr. Diaz, I'm Marcus Webb. I'm conducting a background investigation, and your name came up. I need to ask you some questions about your financial status. Any legal issues you've had? Medical conditions that might affect your judgment? Who hired you? Cornelius Hartley?" Brief pause. "I can't disclose my client, but I'm not answering your questions. If you contact me again, I'll report this harassment to the police and my attorney. Have a good day." I hung up, then immediately document the call. Date, time, every question asked, the inference about who hired him. Emailed it to Foster with a brief note. "Cornelius is investigating me. Document attached. This shows consciousness of guilt." Foster's response came within minutes. "Perfect, this helps our case. He's panicking, grasping for leverage. It won't work." The private investigator never called again. Cornelius had wasted $3,500, money he couldn't afford, on an investigation that found nothing because there was nothing to find. June 15th brought another call, this one official. "Mr. Diaz, this is Lisa Montoya from the Arizona Department of Real Estate. I'm calling to inform you that based on preliminary investigation, we've issued a temporary suspension of Mr. Hartley's license. The full administrative hearing is scheduled for August 15th. You may be called to testify." I thanked her, hung up, and filed the suspension notice without celebration. Just another document in the folder, labeled Hartley Cornelius Professional Complaint. Without his license, Cornelius couldn't work, couldn't earn commission, couldn't pay his mounting debts. Throughout these months, Gertrude appeared every Saturday afternoon. The first visits were stilted, awkward. She'd sit in my living room nursing coffee I made too strong, updating me on job applications that mostly ended in rejection, apartment hunting in a tight market, divorce proceedings that crept forward slowly. By June, the conversations flowed easier. She'd gotten better at talking without performing, at sharing without manipulating. "I got the permanent position," she said during one visit, and I could hear genuine pride in her voice. "Administrative assistant at a dental office. It's not glamorous, but it's steady. $38,000 a year, benefits after 90 days. I signed a lease on a studio apartment. Small, but it's mine. 600 square feet. I'm paying my own bills now, all of them." "That's good," I acknowledged carefully. "That's what independence looks like." Pause. "How's the divorce proceeding?" "He didn't contest it. No assets to split. Everything's in foreclosure or debt. Should be final by September. I don't talk to him anymore. My lawyer handles everything." She stared into her coffee. "I haven't seen him since March, the day I left." I watched her during these visits, noting the changes, the expensive clothes replaced with Target basics, the manicured nails now plain, cut short for practical work, the entitled attitude replaced with humility, with awareness of her previous behavior. I didn't comment on these changes, just noted them silently, evidence that her progress was real, not performed. Early July, I saw the foreclosure notice in the Arizona Republic's legal section. The house where Gertrude and Cornelius had lived was being seized by Mountain Trust Bank for default on the $215,000 second mortgage. Public auction scheduled for August 12th. The pieces were falling into place. Cornelius's career suspended, his marriage ended, his home foreclosed. Natural consequences, not personal revenge. The system delivering justice exactly as it should. During the last Saturday visit in July, I asked her directly, "Why are you really here, Gertrude? Every week these visits. What do you want from me?" She set down her coffee cup, met my eyes without flinching. "Nothing. I don't want money or help or anything except maybe, eventually, to have a father again. I know I don't deserve it. I know I broke something that might never be fixed, but I'm trying to become someone who deserves a second chance, even if you never give me one." Her voice was steady, honest, direct. No manipulation, no performance, no tears deployed strategically. "That's the first completely honest thing you've said to me since Thanksgiving," I replied. "I know." After she left that evening, I walked to my desk and pulled out my will, the one that excluded her, the one I'd drafted after January's confrontation. I began making notes for a new version, not because she'd earned forgiveness yet, but because she'd earned the chance to earn it. August would bring the administrative hearing, Cornelius's final reckoning. But for now, I allowed myself a cautious optimism that maybe, just maybe, my daughter was finding her way back, not to where we'd been. That was impossible. But to something new, something built on honesty rather than entitlement. Time would tell if she could sustain it. The administrative hearing was scheduled for August 15th at 2 o'clock. I arrived 30 minutes early, dressed in a gray suit I'd worn to testify in court dozens of times during my career. Foster met me in the lobby of the Department of Real Estate offices. Cornelius's attorney requested a continuance yesterday. Denied. "They're out of delays." We entered the hearing room, a formal space with a long table, recording equipment, an administrative law judge presiding. Cornelius sat at the opposite table with a lawyer who looked exhausted. Cornelius himself looked worse. Thinner, gray-faced, wearing a suit that hung loose on his frame. He didn't meet my eyes. The hearing lasted 90 minutes. Foster presented our evidence systematically. The copied key, the false ownership claims, the harassment, the restraining order. Every document organized, every timeline clear. Cornelius's attorney tried to argue that it was a family dispute, not a professional matter. The judge stopped him. Mr. Hartley used his position as a licensed real estate agent to gain access to Mr. Diaz's property, copied keys without authorization, and made fraudulent claims about ownership. This is precisely a professional matter. The decision came 1 week later. Certified letter, official seal, license revocation, permanent, effective immediately. I read the letter twice, then filed it away. Felt no triumph, no satisfaction in his suffering, only a sense of completion. Justice delivered through proper channels. The system had worked as it should. That weekend, Gertrude's divorce was finalized. She texted me the case number, the final decree. September 1st, she started therapy, processing everything she said, learning to recognize manipulation, to trust her own judgment. I invited her to dinner at my North Scottsdale condo, the first time she'd been inside since that Sunday morning in December when Cornelius's key failed. She arrived promptly at 6, carrying a small plant as a housewarming gift. "I know I'm 9 months late," she said, "but better late than never." I accepted it, placed it on the kitchen counter. We ate simple food, grilled chicken, vegetables, rice. Nothing elaborate. The conversation was easier now, natural. She told me about her therapy sessions, about recognizing the patterns in her relationship with Cornelius, about learning to stand on her own. After dinner, we sat in the living room. The sunset painted the mountains orange and purple through the western windows. "I need to tell you something," she said. "A real apology. Not the ones I tried before, the manipulative ones." She took a breath. "I came to Thanksgiving with Cornelius's plan already made. I knew what we were doing was wrong, but I convinced myself it was okay because we needed the money, because you were older and might not need such a big place. I betrayed you, deliberately, and I'm sorry, truly sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just need you to know I understand what I did." I sat with that for a moment. "I updated my will last month," I said. "You're included again, with conditions. The inheritance requires proof of continued independence, stable employment, maintained sobriety, no financial support from me. If you meet those conditions for 2 years after my death, you inherit. If not, everything goes to charity." She didn't look hurt, just nodded. "That's fair, more than fair. Trust has to be earned," I continued. "You're earning it, slowly, but you're doing the work." "I'll keep doing it," she promised. We sat together, watching the sunset fade, the city lights beginning to twinkle below. 9 months ago, she'd stood in my old apartment, announcing she was taking this place. Now she sat here as a guest, grateful for the invitation. After Gertrude left that evening, I stood alone in my living room. The condo I'd bought with my retirement savings, the one Cornelius tried to steal, the one that had started this entire war. I walked to the window and looked out at Phoenix spread below, lights stretching to the horizon as darkness settled over the valley. 9 months. From Thanksgiving dinner to late August. From betrayal to justice. Cornelius had lost everything, his license, his marriage, his home, his reputation, his future in real estate. He'd tried to take my life, and instead he'd destroyed his own. Gertrude had lost her marriage but found herself, lost her entitled lifestyle but gained independence, lost her father's trust but was earning it back, slowly, honestly. And I'd defended what was mine, not through violence or illegal means, but through documentation, evidence, legal processes, and the simple refusal to be a victim. My training had taught me to follow the money, track the patterns, build the case. Those skills had saved me. I thought about the will sitting in Kowalski's office, the conditional trust I'd placed in my daughter. Maybe she'd earn it, maybe she wouldn't, but I'd given her the chance, and that felt right. Justice didn't mean destruction without mercy. It meant consequences fitting the actions, and opportunities matching the efforts to change. The mountains were dark silhouettes against the deepening sky. Tomorrow was September 1st, a new month, a new season. The 9-month war was over. I'd won. Not through revenge, but through justice. Not through anger, but through strategy. Not by destroying others, but by protecting myself and holding people accountable for their choices. I turned from the window, tired but satisfied. Tomorrow I'd call Foster, thank him officially for his work. Tomorrow I'd review my finances, ensure everything remained secure. Tomorrow I'd continue my life, the life I'd defended, the independence I'd preserved, the dignity I'd never surrendered. But tonight, I'd simply rest. The battle was done. Justice had prevailed, and I was still standing in my own home, on my own terms, exactly where I belonged. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.